Hello everyone and welcome to week 9 of your literature. What you are going to do this week is you are going to read part 2, but you are not going to answer any comprehension questions on part 2. After you've read part 2, I would like you to go back and read the whole story again and see can you underline as many literary devices that you can find. In this PowerPoint or presentation, we are going to revise the key literary devices and we are going to discuss symbolic elements and look at some pictures from the actual time period. So you may be asking yourself, what are literary devices? So they are the tools the author uses to portray a message. So if an author doesn't use literary devices, generally his story is going to be quite poor, or her story is going to be quite poor. So they need to have literary devices in their story to make it exciting, interesting, and engaging. So we're going to look at the literary devices in the Sniper. I think we're going to look at maybe 6 or 7 of them, and we're going to talk about the first 3 now. So imagery, simile, and metaphor. So imagery is when the author used descriptive words, sensory language, show don't tell method to get his point across to the reader. So the whole point of imagery is to create a picture in your head. So the author is like a painter. Simile is when you're comparing two things using like or as. And a metaphor is when you're comparing two unlike things without using like or as. Another way of saying it is saying something is something else. So the teacher is a dragon. You're alluding to the teacher may not be a nice person, or it could lose their temper very quickly. Personification, so that gives human actions or traits to objects. Onomatopoeia, the sound of the word represents the sound. Hyperbole, an exaggeration. And lastly, on this page, foreshadowing, a hint or clue to a future event. So if you look at this picture, this lady has obviously drunk some coffee that is really hot, and basically there's flames coming out of her mouth. So it's telling us, or exaggerating, that her mouth is on fire. So that is an example of hyperbole. Up here we have two M&Ms, and we should know from watching the TV that these two creatures, or sweets, can actually talk. So you're giving the human quality of talking to chocolate sweets. Here we have foreshadowing, as we can see the magazine in the background with New York and the price of a bus ticket. So that is basically giving us a clue that Bart Simpson may get on the bus to New York. And lastly, probably needs no explanation, but this is boom. It is an example of onomatopoeia because the word is the same as the sound. Now, we may not have met this before, but I am sure we are all aware, or probably we are all unaware, that we actually know what this means. Situational irony. What happens is different or opposite to what we expect. I'll give you a very basic example. So the English teacher failed the English exam. So what has happened is different to what you should have been expected to happen. Another example would be the fire station burnt down. So you would expect that the fire station, because it's full of firefighters, would be the only building on planet Earth that would not be burnt down by a fire. What I want you to do is I want you to watch that video that you see there, Situational Irony, the opposite of what you think. It's a very good video. It gives you a very clear explanation of what situational irony is, and you need to understand it before you answer your worksheet. Now, symbolism. So symbolism is when objects stand for more than themselves. So it goes beyond their literal meaning. We've all read The Maze Runner, and we know that the box symbolizes rebirth. We know that the maze actually symbolizes a prison. So symbolism is when an object has a deeper meaning or it represents something different. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to talk you through some of the symbols that exist in the Sniper. I am going to talk through them, but I am not going to read the actual explanation on the PowerPoint. You can pause the PowerPoint and read through the full explanation. So in our story, a corpse is mentioned. So a corpse is just a dead body. Okay. So this actually symbolizes the harshness of war. So people are just seen as objects because they have no name. So the corpse actually represents the lack of respect for human life in this story. The parapet is where the snipers are hiding and firing from in our text. This actually symbolizes the divide between the brothers, their actual divide between their emotions and the divide between their convictions or what they believe in. So one is a Republican and the other is a Free Stater. Guns, they represent the loss of life, death and destruction. So that is a very easy one to remember. So in any war, guns are the symbol of like violence, death and destruction. The bridge, or what's called OConnell Bridge, this represents basically the opposite sides of life during war. So on one side you have happiness and joy, and on the other side you have basically death and destruction. And the armored car represents us all basically during war, and in particular the sniper in the story. So on the outside he basically shows that he is a tough man. He has no emotions, nothing is affecting him, but probably on the inside he is very vulnerable. He feels sorry that he is killing Irishmen during the war. And lastly, the old woman in our story is unnamed, or she does not have a name. Similar to the corpse, it shows the reality of war. Basically, people are seen just as objects, and there is no respect for human life. So just to go over symbols again. So symbols basically is when we go beyond the literal meaning of the object. For example, the color white. So white is a color, however, that could symbolize peace. A flag, so wherever you are from, a flag is just an object, however, that could symbolize how proud you are of your nation or where you come from. So that is what symbolism is. It goes beyond the object's literal meaning. And to finish up the PowerPoint, I am just going to flick through some images of what Dublin looked like during that time. So that is just a building destroyed during the battle. Here is actually a very good picture, and it gives us an idea of the setting of the story. So on one side, maybe on top of these buildings here, we would have snipers, and they would be hiding up there, and they would be shooting at enemies on the opposite side of the river. You can't really see the buildings here, but other snipers, enemy snipers, would be hiding up here, and they would be firing back and forth for the duration of the day and even night. Here we have the forecourts, which is mentioned in the start of the text. So it's just a building in Dublin where they would have basically the courts or the courthouses. And lastly, this is just a picture of a sniper taken from that actual time period. I think he is a Free State soldier, and he is just taking up his position on the top of a roof, probably firing down on his enemies. Now, I would like to recap on your homework. What you have to do is you have to complete the worksheet. It's a mix and match exercise. Then I have given you some literary devices from the text, and you have to fill in what type of literary device it is. You need to use the PowerPoint to help you answer the questions. If you have any further questions, please ask your teacher on Google Classroom. Have a good day.